Chapter 1. The Ice Queen and the Enigma. The morning air in St. Augustine's private hospital was as sterile and cold as the woman gliding through its corridors. Dr. Aria Bennett moved with clinical precision, lab coat crisp, hair pinned flawlessly, peels clicking like a metronome counting down to another heart in crisis. The staff knew her as the Ice Queen, a surgeon with unmatched skill and a demeanor that never cracked. Patients loved her results. Colleagues respected her detachment. No one got too close, and that's how she liked it until Dante Vale arrived. She was summoned to the executive wing, a rarely used part of the hospital reserved for VIPs and the terminally wealthy. The air was scented with imported lilies. Guards in black suits flanked the door. She expected a pampered CEO or another fading socialite, demanding immortality in a pill. What she found was a man alone. Dante Vale lay propped up on starched pillows, connected to a sleek bank of machines that beeped in slow, steady intervals. He was younger than she expected, mid-30s, maybe dark-haired, olive-skinned, and sinfully handsome in the kind of way that drew eyes without trying. But what struck Aria most was the look in his eyes. Not fear, not arrogance, in between, as if he was seeing someone he already knew. "You're Dr. Bennett," he said, voice hoarse but unmistakably calm. Finally, Aria didn't flinch. "Mr. Vale, I understand you requested a private consult." "Actually," he said with a faint, infuriating smirk, "I requested you." She felt the chill tighten in her spine. "I don't take special requests." Then today's an exception. His chart was impossible. A rare congenital heart defect, multiple failed procedures overseas, and yet he refused transfer to any of the top cardiac institutes. He came here, her hospital seemed just for her. She didn't like it. She liked mystery even less. She examined his vitals with mechanical focus, noting the irregularities, the near impossible strain his heart was under. "You shouldn't be alive," she muttered without meaning to. "I get that a lot." She looked up, sharp. He was watching her, not in the way patients usually watched their doctors, but with an intensity that made her feel observed rather than observing. "Do I make you uncomfortable, doctor?" he asked, eyes flicking to the wedding band she no longer wore. "You don't to make me anything," she replied coolly. "My job is to keep you alive, not entertained. But I'd wager you don't do much living yourself." The remark landed with the precision of a scalpel. She snapped the file closed. "I'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Vale. Get some rest. You'll need it." He laughed quietly as she walked away. "Funny thing about rest," he called after her. "It doesn't come easy when your heart keeps secrets." She didn't stop, but her pulse traitorous and loud echoed in her ears long after she left the room. Chapter 2. Pulse of a stranger. Aria Bennett did not believe in coincidences. In medicine, every symptom had a cause, every irregularity a source. But something about Dante Vale felt too engineered, too precise, like a riddle that had been waiting specifically for her to solve it. She reviewed his scans late into the night, eyes narrowed at the anomalies. His condition was worsening, rapid deterioration of cardiac tissue inconsistent with his genetic profile. But no cause, no pattern, no history, no history. The next morning she returned to find Dante sitting upright, a notebook in hand, not a laptop, not a tablet, a simple leather-bound journal, as if he had time to reflect. "You're early," he said, without looking up. "I'm always early." "Of course you are," he murmured, still writing. "It's how people like you stay ahead. Never stop moving, never look back." She ignored the bait. "I have questions about your last cardiac episode. You showed signs of neurological disassociation. Do you remember what triggered it?" He finally looked up, and the calm in his gaze unsettled her. "I was thinking about your brother." The silence that followed was thick enough to suffocate. Aria's hand froze on her tablet. "Excuse me, Matthew Bennett," he said evenly. "Promising med student, died under unusual circumstances, right here in this hospital." "What was it? An allergic reaction during surgery?" Her blood ran cold. "That's not public information," she said, voice tight. "I'm not the public." She stepped closer, the mask of professionalism cracking slightly. "Why are you really here, Mr. Vale?" He offered a soft, almost pitying smile. "Because hearts carry more than blood. They carry truth, and mine is running out of time." Before she could respond, the heart monitor beside him spiked. A flutter, his breathing hitched. Aria's instincts surged. She grabbed the oxygen mask, barking orders to the nurse. Within seconds the moment passed, stabilized. But her composure didn't return with it. Dante leaned back, pale but smiling faintly. "See, even my heart wants to tell you something." That night, Aria stood alone in the hospital chapel, the place her brother had prayed before his final surgery. She hadn't stepped foot inside in years. She thought of Dante's words, and for the first time in a long while, she whispered her brother's name out loud. Chapter 3. Vitals and Vulnerabilities. The next morning, Aria found herself in the hospital's rooftop garden, clutching a coffee she hadn't even tasted. A gust of wind tugged at her coat as she waited for the one person she still trusted. Dr. Layla Quinn arrived minutes later, lab coat unbuttoned, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "You called before sunrise. You okay?" Aria hesitated before answering. "There's a patient, Dante Vale, the billionaire with the degenerative heart condition." "Right," Layla nodded. Security's been a circus since he showed up. Heard he had a portable espresso machine delivered to his room last night. That's not what concerns me. Aria's voice dropped. He knows about Matthew. Layla blinked. Your brother. He mentioned details that were never released. The allergy, the surgery, the exact room. And then he told me his heart carries secrets. Layla gave a nervous laugh. Sounds poetic or unhinged, or deliberate, Aria said flatly. He's not here for treatment. He's here for me. Layla stared at her, expression shifting. You think he's dangerous? I think he's planning something. Aria's hands tightened around her cup, but I don't know what. Meanwhile, inside the hospital, Dante Vale was already stirring the pot. Nurses found him charming, his dry wit, the way he remembered names, the way he asked about their lives as if he genuinely cared. He flirted with the cleaning staff, thanked the lab techs, joked with security. In less than 3 days, he'd woven himself into the hospital's fabric like thread in silk. But behind closed doors, Dante was anything but casual. He made a call from a hidden burner phone tucked inside his nightstand. The line crackled as a male voice answered on the other end. She's asking questions, Dante said quietly, getting closer. Too close. The voice asked. Not yet, Dante replied, watching the door as if expecting Aria to walk in. She's not ready. Outside his room, Aria stood just beyond view, listening. She had come back to check on his labs but stopped when she heard the murmur of his voice through the door. She didn't catch the full conversation, just the phrase, "She's not ready." A chill danced down her spine. She walked away without knocking, each step echoing with something she hadn't felt in years. Dread. Chapter 4. The confession begins. The hospital had quieted for the night, its sterile corridors bathed in low golden light. Most patients were asleep, most doctors had gone home, but Aria stayed, as she always did, finding solace in the silence and unease in what had allowed her mind to wander toward. She paused outside room 814, fingers brushing the chart, heart thudding slower than usual. Something about tonight felt different. She told herself she was here only to review Dante's vitals, but the moment she stepped in, she sensed he'd been waiting. He sat by the window, unhooked from his monitors, a blanket draped around his shoulders. The moonlight made him look older, or perhaps just tired of the act. He didn't look up when she entered. You're not supposed to unhook yourself, she said. And yet, here I am, he murmured, alive still. Aria crossed her arms. You've been playing games since the moment you got here. No more riddles. Say what you came to say. He looked at her then, and for once the smirk was gone. I came here for the truth, he said, and because I made a promise to a woman named Cassandra. Aria's breath caught. Cassandra, my first love, he said softly. Your mother. The word struck her like a defibrillator. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Cassandra Bennett, dead for 20 years. Car crash, no mystery, no scandal. She died when I was 15, Aria said finally. You expect me to believe you knew her? I loved her, Dante whispered. We met in Paris. I was 21. She was already married. I didn't care, neither did she. Aria's chest felt tight. You're lying. She used to wear a blue scarf when she didn't want to be recognized. She hated figs. Her laugh was soft and strange, like she was holding back joy. You have her eyes. Aria stepped back, her hand braced against the edge of a cabinet. I don't know what game this is, she said, barely above a whisper. But bringing her into it, she wasn't supposed to die that night, Dante said, interrupting. That crash wasn't an accident. She knew something. About your father, about this hospital. He rose, slow and unsteady. She wrote letters, kept journals. I have them, but I needed to be here first. I needed to see if you were anything like her. Aria backed toward the door, her mind spinning. Her mother's name had not been uttered in years, not like this, not like a ghost stepping out of her past and dragging secrets with it. Dante's voice followed her. You want answers, Dr. Bennett? Then stop pretending your past is buried, because it's not. It's alive, beating inside you. She didn't look back as she left, but outside his room, she pressed her palm to her chest and realized her heart was racing. Chapter 5. Bloodline's rain lashed against the tall windows of St. Augustine's, casting streaks across the pale blue walls of the diagnostic lab. Aria stood alone, staring at the results in her trembling hands. The page crinkled where she gripped it too tightly, her eyes refusing to leave the string of numbers and coded terms, a rare genetic marker, shared between two individuals, between her and Dante Vale. That it wasn't medically impossible, but it was astronomically unlikely unless they shared a bloodline. Her first instinct was to accuse the lab of an error, but she had drawn the samples herself. She'd run the test twice. There was no mistake. She stormed into Dante's room without knocking. He was awake, of course, always awake when she needed answers. You knew, she snapped, slamming the report onto his bed. You planned this. He lifted the paper slowly, his expression unreadable. I hoped, her voice shook, that we were related, that my mother had some affair with a stranger and kept it secret until she died. Not a stranger, he said gently. Your grandfather. Aria froze. What? My mother was your grandfather's nurse. She was young, brilliant. He fell in love, but the Bennetts couldn't afford a scandal. He paid her off, erased her name, and I grew up in the shadow of a legacy I never touched. She stared at him, stunned. So you're saying we're cousins? He gave a faint, humorless smile. Technically, yes, distant, but genetically close enough to make the match significant. Aria staggered back a step, her mind reeling. Why now? Why come here? Because your family owns more than a hospital. They own a story they've buried deep. And your mother, Cassandra, tried to bring it to light. She died before she could. His voice cracked, just slightly. I came to finish what she started. Aria shook her head, the walls of her carefully controlled world cracking with every word. This can't be true. My family, my father, he wouldn't cover up something like this. You sure? Dante asked softly. Because he covered up your brother's death well enough, didn't he? Her eyes burned. Dante reached toward her but didn't touch. I know this is too much, but the truth always is. You're not just the Ice Queen, Aria. You're a Bennett, and your blood is at the center of all of it. She turned and walked out, the report still trembling in her hand. Down the hallway, past the nurses, through the emergency stairwell, Aria collapsed onto the bottom step. She couldn't breathe, not because of Dante's condition, but because for the first time, she wasn't sure who she really was. Chapter 6. Sudden flatlinethy storm outside hadn't let up. Thunder cracked in the distance as Aria paced the cardiology wing, the weight of Dante's revelations pressing down on her like lead. Her thoughts ricocheted between disbelief and fury, and underneath it all, a thread of something more dangerous. Fear. She hadn't spoken to him since the test results. Couldn't every answer he gave only unraveled more of her carefully curated life, her mother's affair, her grandfather's betrayal, her father's possible lies. And now this looming question: what had really happened to Matthew? Aria's pager buzzed violently on her hip. Code Blue Room 814. Dante. She ran down 2 flights, through the ICU doors, crashing into the room just as the monitor screamed. He was seizing. 2 nurses and a resident were already working on him. A crash cart stood open, paddles ready. Aria shoved past the crowd, taking control like instinct. BP 70/40 and falling. Pulse V-fib charged to 200 joules. Aria shouted. Double quotes. Dr. Bennett, shouldn't we call? I said, charge it. She pressed the paddles to Dante's chest. Clear. His body jerked upward. The monitor spiked, then flatlined again. Again. Another shock. Still nothing. Aria stared at him, her hands trembling. No. Dr. Bennett, we have to call it soon. Not yet, she snapped. Draw epinephrine. Full dose. The injection went in. The room held its breath. Then a flicker. A heartbeat. Another. The monitor steadied. Slow, but regular. He was back. Aria backed away, chest heaving, sweat clinging to her skin. She felt as though she'd just fought death with her bare hands and barely won. But her relief turned to dread an hour later. She returned to her office to log the episode and found Dante's file missing. His entire digital chart gone. No vitals, no test results, no genetic report. Aria called IT. They confirmed the file had been accessed from her login. 20 minutes earlier, someone had wiped it clean. The door burst open. Chief of Medicine Dr. Halvorsen stepped in, flanked by 2 hospital board members. Dr. Bennett, he said gravely, you're suspended pending investigation for unauthorized alterations to a patient file. Effective immediately. Aria's world tilted on its axis. Dante lay unconscious, his body failing, and someone had used her to cover it up. Chapter 7. Missing. Aria's hands trembled as security escorted her through the hospital corridors. Staff turned their heads in disbelief. Dr. Aria Bennett, the infallible Ice Queen, now stripped of her badge, her title, and her dignity. She didn't speak. Not when Halvorsen read her the official notice. Not when the nurse who had once idolized her refused to meet her eyes. He kept her silence, because the storm inside her was too loud to let anything else in. Dante's file was gone. Her login, that had been used, now she was being painted as the villain in a mystery she hadn't even begun to solve. The moment she was released from the administrative offices, she ran straight to room 814, but the bed was empty, the machines were powered down. No guards, no staff, no Dante. She checked the nurse's station. When was he moved? She demanded. The charge nurse blinked. He wasn't. Aria's stomach dropped. What do you mean? We never got a transfer order. He just wasn't here at morning rounds. Security footage should have cleared things up. Except it didn't exist. Every camera feed covering the ICU wing between 2 o'clock and 4 a.m. was conveniently corrupted. A rare technical error, IT claimed. But Aria knew better. Dante hadn't just disappeared. He'd vanished by midday. She was sitting in a sterile interrogation room, staring across from a plainclothes officer who seemed more annoyed than suspicious. We're not pressing charges yet, Dr. Bennett, he said, flipping through a thin folder, but we are investigating the possibility of medical fraud and data tampering. You sure you want to keep denying knowledge of what happened to Mr. Vale? I didn't do anything to him, Aria said. I was trying to save his life. The officer raised an eyebrow. Funny, because now no one can even prove he was ever your patient. She was released pending further inquiry, but the damage was done. Her career was in freefall. Her reputation shredded. Desperate. Aria called the only person left who might have answers. Layla, they met in the underground parking lot of the hospital. Away from prying eyes. Layla, Aria said breathless, I need your help. Dante's gone. Someone wiped everything, but Layla didn't look surprised. She looked guilty. Aria narrowed her eyes. What did you do? Layla's voice cracked. I didn't mean to lie to you. I was trying to protect you. Dante, he contacted me weeks before he ever checked in. Aria went cold. He said he needed to get close to you, that it was about the past, about your family. You were in on it. Aria whispered. You knew. I didn't know it would go this far. Layla insisted. I thought he just wanted the truth. Aria turned away, her breath catching. Her best friend, her last ally, and you didn't think I deserved to know. Layla's voice was soft. Would you have listened? The silence between them said everything. Aria walked into the rain without another word, soaked and shaking, not from cold, but from the feeling that the only pulse she could still trust might be her own. Chapter 8. The Vale inheritance. The key arrived in an unmarked envelope, slipped under Aria's apartment door like a ghost's whisper. No note, no explanation, just an antique brass key, cool to the touch, with a small tag attached. Caraway, Estate Northgate. She should have thrown it away, called the police, burned it instead. She followed it. The estate was an hour outside the city, hidden behind overgrown hedges and a wrought iron gate that creaked like it hadn't opened in decades. Aria's fingers trembled as she inserted the key. The lock clicked, with eerie ease. Inside, she found a manor that seemed frozen in time. Dust lay thick over the marble floors. Portraits with unfamiliar faces stared down from the walls. Rooms were filled with antique furniture, untouched books, and the quiet hum of long-buried secrets. In the study, she found it the journal, leather-bound, cracked with age, and inside the looping, unmistakable handwriting of a man she now knew by another name, Elias Carter. Dante Vale was a lie, a mask. Elias Carter, the illegitimate son of Harold Bennett. Her grandfather was the truth. The journal told everything. His mother, Miriam, had been a nurse at St. Augustine's decades ago. Young, kind, brilliant. Her affair with Harold had been hushed up, covered with bribes and threats. When she became pregnant, she was fired under false accusations and disappeared into poverty, raising Elias alone. Elias grew up watching the Bennett name from afar. He became a man of means, brilliance, and bitterness, building an empire in the tech world, not for power, but for access, for revenge. But something changed. Cassandra, Aria's mother. Her name was written again and again in the journal. Descriptions of stolen weekends in Florence. A sketch of her profile, delicate and serene. Letters she had sent, some torn at the corners from being reread too often. And then entries full of rage. Cassandra had discovered something at the hospital. Something Elias wouldn't write down, only that she had planned to go public. But then came the crash, the accident. The final page of the journal was smudged. Elias had written, she left behind more than truth. She left behind Aria. I was too late to save Cassandra. I won't be too late for her daughter. Aria's hands shook as she closed the book. It wasn't just about her mother or her grandfather, or even Matthew. She was a pawn in a game they'd begun long before she was born. A legacy built on betrayal, and now on blood. Elias hadn't come to destroy her. He'd come to reclaim what was his, and he had made her the key to unlock it all. Chapter 9. The lies within. Aria stood in her father's study, the soft tick of the grandfather clock echoing behind her like a countdown. Dr. Malcolm Bennett sat across from her, the picture of poised, authority-tailored suit, silver hair immaculate, the same steady gaze he used to intimidate boardrooms and interns alike. She dropped Elias's journal onto the mahogany desk with a heavy thud. I want the truth. Malcolm didn't flinch. He merely adjusted his glasses and looked at the worn leather cover. Where did you get this? You already know the answer. He studied her for a moment, then sighed, not in surrender, but as though tired of a long game finally reaching its final act. She meant nothing to me, he said, voice low, just a phase. Your grandfather's mistake. Aria's mouth tightened. She gave birth to Elias Carter, your nephew, my cousin. Illegitimate, he corrected sharply, which means not family. Not by our standards. Her hands balled into fists. He didn't come for money, he came for the truth. Because of Cassandra. Something flickered in Malcolm's eyes, the first crack in his perfect composure. Your mother was always too curious for her own good. She knew, didn't she? Aria said. About Elias, about what happened at St. Augustine's. She thought she knew, he replied coldly. She never had proof. You silenced her, Aria whispered. That crash, it wasn't an accident, was it? He looked away. That was answer enough. She was going to expose something, Aria continued, pressing on the crack. Something more than just your father's affair. What was it? His jaw clenched. It died with her. No, she said, stepping closer. It died with Matthew. His eyes shot to hers. My brother didn't overdose, Aria hissed. You let him die. Or worse, you made it happen. Malcolm rose from his chair, slamming his palm on the desk. Watch your tone. But Aria didn't flinch. You built an empire on secrets and lies. Now they're all unraveling and Elias is the one holding the thread. She turned and walked out, her pulse hammering in her ears, her body shaking with fury. Upstairs, in the attic she hadn't touched since childhood, she found one of her mother's old boxes. Inside were photos, postcards, and a torn page from a medical report. Her brother's daughter had been altered, just like Dante's. She sank to the floor, clutching the page, tears hot in her eyes. Her father hadn't just betrayed her family, he had rewritten their history one heartbeat at a time. Chapter 10. Betrayal in White Coats. The hospital looked different now, sharper, meaner. A place once defined by purpose now felt drenched in shadows Aria hadn't noticed until they threatened to drown her. She slipped through the staff entrance in a hoodie and surgical mask, no longer a doctor, just a ghost hunting answers. She waited in the shadows of the staff lounge until Layla arrived. Aria stepped out, and her friend startled, clutching her chest. "Jesus, Aria, we need to talk," Aria said now. They found a quiet corner of the research library, long forgotten by the hospital's day-to-day chaos. Aria dropped a folder on the table, Eliza's journal. The photo of her mother, the forged page from Matthew's report. "I know everything," Aria said. "I know who he really is. I know what my father did. I know you've been lying to me." Layla closed her eyes. "I didn't want it to happen like this," she whispered. "Then how did you want it to happen, Layla?" Aria asked, voice cracking, quietly, cleanly. "Just another story buried under years of surgical precision." Layla looked away. "He came to me 6 months ago, Elias. Said he needed a doctor inside. Someone who could help him get close to you without raising alarms. And you agreed." "I didn't have a choice," Layla said. "My brother, Daniel, he was in debt. Dangerous debt. Elias paid it off. In exchange, I gave him intel. Just little things at first. Shift schedules, staff routines. But then he asked about your mother and Matthew." Aria felt the floor tilt under her. "You were my friend," she whispered. "I am," Layla said, tears in her eyes. "And I wanted to tell you so many times, but every time I looked at you, I saw what it would cost, and I was a coward." Aria's heart screamed at her to walk away, but instead, she asked, "Where is he?" Layla hesitated, then pulled a burner phone from her coat and slid it across the table. "2 missed calls last night. He's trying to reach you." Aria snatched the phone and stepped away. Her hands shook as she pressed redial. It rang once, then twice. Click. Aria's voice was raw, strained, like he hadn't spoken in days. "If you're hearing this, it means the house of cards is falling faster than I planned." She said nothing, just listened. "I never meant to hurt you, but your family built something rotten, and I needed to show you that. I never count on you being the one thing I couldn't destroy." A pause. "Then meet me, just you, no one else. I'll tell you everything. The real truth." He gave a time, a place. Then the line went dead. Aria stared at the phone, her throat dry, her heart pounding. She turned back to Layla, her voice ice. "If I go to him and find another lie, I swear I'll burn every name attached to this." Layla nodded. Silent. Aria left, the phone clenched in her hand, walking into a night heavy with answers that could either set her free or shatter her for good. Casting golden lines across the white sheets. Machines beeped softly in rhythm beside Ilias's bed, not urgently, but steadily, reassuringly. Alive, Aria sat. Nearby, her hospital gown loose around her shoulders, a bandage over her left side where tissue had been harvested. Every breath felt like moving through water, slow, heavy, but still hers. She watched him sleep, his chest rising and falling in sync with the monitors. For a moment he looked like a man untouched by secrets, just a survivor, a man who had been both weapon and wound. The door opened quietly. Layla entered, her expression a cocktail of relief and regret. "He's stable," she whispered. "I know," Aria said. "I can feel it." She gestured to her chest. "It's like some part of me still hears his heartbeat." Layla hesitated. "The board's gone. Arrested. Your father's being held without bail. The immunity deal held up. You're clear. You saved the hospital." Aria gave a bitter smile. "But I lost everything that mattered before it." Layla nodded, stepping closer. "And him, I don't know," Aria whispered. "When he wakes up, I don't know if he'll stay." He didn't. 3 days later, Elias was gone. No note, no message, no farewell. Aria woke up to find his bed empty, the monitors off, and her heart lurching in a way no surgeon could fix. The nurses said he signed himself out, quietly, without fanfare, as if he was never really meant to stay. In the days that followed, Aria returned to work slowly, not as a doctor but in administrative review, helping the federal task force piece together the last 20 years of corruption. She turned over every document, every name, every lie. And then she stopped. She resigned from St. Augustine's, the place that built her and broke her. Instead, she founded a small cardiac wellness clinic on the edge of the city. No marble floors, no media buzz, just clean walls, kind hands, and second chances. She poured herself into the work, into saving people who still had time, into forgetting the man who walked away with half her heart. But some nights, when the rain hit the windows just right, she could still feel his pulse inside her, steady, quiet, and far away, and she wondered, had she given her heart away, or had he simply taken it with him? Either way, it was his now. and she didn't know if she'd ever get it back. Chapter 15. The final confession. The morning was quiet, unusually so. A low fog hung over the city, and Aria moved through her clinic like a woman who had made peace with stillness, or at least stopped fighting it. It had been a year since she'd left St. Augustine's, a year since she last saw Elias. Her clinic was small, nestled between a florist and a coffee shop, but it was hers. Patients came in scared and left with hope. She didn't wear heels anymore, didn't tie her hair up like armor. She had stopped being the ice queen. Until that morning, when a courier delivered a letter with no return address. The envelope was thick, sealed with red wax. She didn't open it right away. She waited until the sun began to set, casting amber light over her office. Then, with shaking fingers, she broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten in familiar, sharp strokes. Aria, if you're reading this, it means I kept my promise to disappear, to protect you, to give you your life back. I thought leaving would save you from the parts of me that couldn't be saved, but the truth is, I was wrong. You didn't just share your heart with me in that you gave me back my humanity. You made me believe that even in a world built on betrayal, love could still be real, and terrifying, and worth every risk. I was never good at staying, but I never stopped thinking about you. I've left you something, one last confession, one last heartbeat. At the bottom of the letter was a tiny audio chip and a location, 221 Halcyon Hill, midnight. Her hands trembled. She pressed play. The sound that filled the room wasn't a voice, it was a heartbeat, steady, deep, familiar. She didn't hesitate. By midnight, she was driving through winding hills, headlights slicing through mist, her own heart pounding louder with every turn. The address led to an old lighthouse, long abandoned. The front door was ajar. Inside, candles lit the path, and then, in the center of the room, Elias standing alive. Their eyes met for a heartbeat. They said nothing. Then he stepped forward. I wanted to come back sooner, he said, but I needed to be worthy of you. She didn't answer, just walked to him. And then she touched his chest, right where the scar from the surgery ran. I never needed perfect, she whispered, just real. His hand closed over hers. Their lips met in a kiss that didn't erase the past, but forgave it. They had both been wounded, betrayed, reborn. Now they stood at the edge of the only future that mattered, together, two hearts stitched by fate, finally beating as one.